everyone! Welcome to this Level Up Festival where we bring youth and experts together to share crucial life lessons that will help teens and young adults craft their best future selves. I am Nyssa Bailey, a 17-year-old past student of Bishop Anstey High School East, and I will be one of your hosts for today's session, accompanied by Moriah. And today, I'm very excited in welcoming this next presentation. And I am so happy to have Daniel Francis speak to us on determining your strengths and skills. Daniel is an awesome personal development coach, and he's also the author of The Millennial Mind and The Millennial Experience. Daniel has been an advocate for youth development for the past 10 years, starting with his service at his parish, then as a head prefect at Fatima College. When he returned to Trinidad, his advocacy for youth development was furthered even more by becoming a pinned member of the Rotary Club of Port of Spain West. And he was even the director of professional development between the years of 2018 and 2019. Daniel, I can't wait for your presentation and all the cool tips you have for us. The floor is all yours.
Hello. Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to guide, happy to give the insights for all those listening. Be prepared to learn from my story. Today, we're talking about determining your strengths and skills, something that I'm very, very familiar with as a coach. And I thought the best way that I could do this would be to guide you by talking about my story, because that's the best thing that I can think of when in line with this, right? So my story actually started, again, in Fatima College. I was lucky enough to study abroad, come back to Trinidad, and for me, I always wanted to be a doctor, right? Since I was in below Form 5, I just said, I'm good at sciences. I did them in Form 6. I mean, yeah, why not be a doctor? And that was something my teachers, my parents had drilled home. But one thing that my parents always told me that really stuck was, Daniel, you know what? Do what you love. And for me, even though they did not give any context to what that actually meant, I saw that as once I like something and I'm good at it, and it doesn't cause me any particular too much stress, I will stick with it. So that's where the sciences and being a doctor came from. But then I got back to Trinidad, and it was time to apply to med school and do all the back and forth. But something within me didn't feel right. I couldn't like commit to it fully, and that led me to this period where I was very, very, very lost. And this leads me to the first point: leveraging your talents for success. Right? For me, however, I didn't know what that talent was, because during this period where I wanted to apply to med school, I couldn't. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just worked. That's what you do when you're an adult. You just work, you make money, you pile on those responsibilities. Something that I started doing, I said that, on a lunchtime, I try to meet with a friend, because, you're not in school anymore. You don't get to see your friends as often. So I'd actually schedule time where I would eat and have lunch with specific friends. And this became such a norm that I would just be constantly meeting with different persons, and then they would come with their little problems. And I was always that guy who would give the advice, help guide somebody from point A to point B. I never thought of it as a career or anything like that. But one day, my friend came with a really tough problem, and I don't know, I just was very inspired that day, and I guided her through it. She said to me, "Well, Daniel, why did you get paid to do this? You do this so well." And it was at that point I realized, oh wow, I have a talent for this. And then I had to figure out now, okay, what is the next stage for this, right? Lucky for me, my parents are coaches, they're leadership development coaches. So I came to them with this, they were super excited, and they started me on the process of personal development. I did my own program, and then I realized that this is exactly how I want to get persons from point A to point B. So first things first, determine what is that talent that you have, and how can you use it to help other persons or to move forward in your life. For me, I had to figure out that, hey, I'm really good, I'm very passionate about coaching. What is that for you? And in this 21st century, you might think the most crazy things can be things that can actually guide you forward. So really think hard and long about what is it that talent that you have that you can use moving forward. Next, knowing your values and beliefs and how to utilize them to your advantage. For me, when it comes to this, it's all about purpose and making sure that your purpose aligns with every single thing that you do. I remember the first thing I did when I did my first personal development program, it asked me about, like, what is your purpose statement, right? So we know that businesses have their mission statements, but what if you had to create your own personal mission statement, right? It's purpose statement. And I was challenged to write that. So it's asking me questions about, who am I? What do I stand for? What does it mean for the things that I'm going to do each and every day? When I sat down and I answered those questions, my purpose statement, it just rang true. I want to use my abilities and the gifts that God gave me to help people become the best versions of themselves. For my name to be synonymous with leadership, empathy, and intelligence, and to be 1% better each day. And I crystallize my purpose into those sentences. Now, it's one thing to have it, which you should be working towards figuring out, what is this purpose? What is this passion that I'm really into? And then also living through it. And that living through it is super important, because when times get tough and you get a little tired and you're like, oh, this is a little bit hard, because you are living through purpose, because you're working through this thing that you're super passionate about, you love doing it, yes, you'll be tired, but you're going to be able to tap into this unlimited motivation because you are doing something that you are truly passionate about. When you're truly passionate about someone, no one has to force you to do it. No one can take that away from you. And you always find that you want to give your best, your all to this particular thing. So once you find out what that purpose is, align it to everything that you do so that you can always tap into that unlimited motivation, because that unlimited motivation helped me in my coaching, so that when I was trying to figure out how best to move forward and the days were long and I'm tired and I'm still in front of persons, it wasn't as bad, just because it's like, this is exactly what I am supposed to be doing. So it never really felt truly like work. It always just felt like fun interactions. And the final point that I want to get to is you have to be able to evaluate where you are now and develop a path to improve. Now, this point is super, super important. Yes, you have to figure out how to leverage your talents and success. Yes, you have to align that with your purpose, but you also need to be real about where you are currently. For me, when I became a coach, I said I love when I sit in front of persons, I'm able to help them get from point A to point B. But you know what I didn't realize was how difficult it would be to do everything else that comes with being a businessman and an entrepreneur. Right? I had to get the clients, I had to move them through like sales cycles, I had to do my own marketing, I had to schedule my meetings. And the combination of all of it made me realize that even though I may be really good at the one-on-one interactions, I need to improve myself in all the different sectors of the work that I'm doing, but also I need to make a plan. And when I sat down, and this is something you should do, you should take honest stock of where you're at. Be really, really honest about your ability right now, especially when it comes to that talent that you have. Be really honest about your purpose and where you want to go. And be as specific as you possibly can when speaking about, well, where will this lead me into the future? So a perfect example of this, when I took stock of myself, I realized, wow, I am really an amateur at all of this. And in order for me to do my job really well as a coach, I need to educate myself. So that looked like setting specific goals. One of those goals were read one book a week, right? Do a course on personal development every 2 months. And I stuck to that, especially in 2019. And immediately I realized that when you develop yourself and you take your education very, very seriously, you begin opening more doors, right? The one main door that was open to me that year was in September, after reading about 40 books and feeling like I was just bursting with knowledge. I asked myself, how could I help more people? How could I leverage this success, align it with my purpose, and push something amazing forward? And it just came to me in an instant to, Daniel, just write a book. And that helped birth the idea for my first book, The Millennial Mind. And this book would not have been as amazing as it was were it not for the fact that I set that goal of reading one book a week, because I had inadvertently done all the work. I had learned all the information. I had kind of decided, see the structures of books, see what I like, see what I didn't like, and I was able to use that knowledge and that experience to now put it into a book. And that guided the success of my book, where now, I'm at 2,000 books being sold during a pandemic. So it just goes to show that when you are really, really, really focused and you've evaluated yourself and you've made a plan moving forward, all these things come together One, to form a really, really dazzling plan that can help move you forward. Now, I know a lot of this might be a little bit hard to see if you're in school, but all of these concepts work even if you still have classes, right? Understanding what you're good at, making sure that you can assign what you're really passionate about, and then taking stock of where you're at and making it a charter forward of where you want to be and how you want to get there. All right, so I hope that this talk was useful, and thank you for taking the time to hear me today. Pass it on to the host.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for all the advice you've given us. It was so valuable, and I truly enjoyed it. Now, joining us on this discussion is Moriah.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Nyssa, and hello, David. Thank you all for being here. Hi everyone, I am Moriah, a 14-year-old Brahman secondary student representing Success Leventon. Anybody from Success Leventon here? Anyway, what an inspiring presentation from you, Daniel. Well,
Thank you so
let's
much.
get you into the hot seat. Are you ready?
Bring it, bring it.
How can we expand our skill set to broaden our horizon? So I heard about you doing reading and a book every week and doing a different course every 2 months.
Yeah.
So how can we as youths try and do the same thing as you did?
Now, it's so amazing because the time we're living in, resources are everywhere. You see this thing that we're walking around with everywhere? Listen, you know how much books I could get on this? You know how much audio books? You know how much videos? Listen, even as an adult, when I don't know what to do, I just go on the University of YouTube and I get the information on how to get it done. And that's for like regular things. But you can do it for all the different aspects. So it really starts by you saying, well, what do I want to be? Where do I want to go? You get to use your imagination to say, okay, well, what could that future look like for me based on what I like? Once you say what it is, pull this out and decide, okay, well, how am I going to learn, right? Because you can download all these books. There's podcasts. Again, there's YouTube videos, right? And then you have the time now to experiment with what you learn to then use it to level up yourself. So it's really not about like how, it's really, what am I going to choose? You have all the opportunities now to pick whatever it is that you want to focus on.
But I guess that is true because like if we have self-discipline, we have the door to all the information, which is our cell phone, which is the internet. That was
Definitely.
what the internet was made for.
Definitely.
Anyway, let's go to the second question. Nyssa.
Mr. Francis, during the 10 years as a youth advocate, what challenges have you faced and overcame?
That's a good one. So when you are advocating for youth, you will find that there will be a lot of resistance, maybe from the generations above, because at the end of the day, we are very different. Even for me, I know that you all have so much potential, but you know what? You'll come with something different, right? So same with my generation. I mean, we weren't born with like cell phones in our hands, but we came with it. So when we start into the working world, we basically challenge the status quo, right? We ask a lot of questions. And I'm sure you realize that when you keep asking questions about and questioning what is the norm, is people start to watch you like, hey, want to this man, just do what we ask you to do, right? But it's really, really important that if you're curious about something and you don't know why something is done in a particular way, you ask the question. Because as a youth, if you ask that question, you challenge that status quo, you're not opening the door, the opportunity for some change. You might be adding something that can help what is currently being done and make it better. And that's what we want as youth. We want to bring new techniques, new innovation to the world so that the world gets better. And that's only going to happen if we keep being curious, we keep challenging, and we don't let ourselves be silenced just because someone, doesn't necessarily want to answer the question or just like, not today, right? So I think as youth, we always come with innovation. We always come to disrupt a little bit. It might be turbulent, but it's always positive. It always brings change that is inevitably going to help everyone around us. And that's super important.
Thank you. A question from the audience. Do you know where you can find these different self-developing courses?
Yeah, there are a bunch of sites online. So, I mean, my company does, but I mean, before I knew about any of this, I used to go on the site. They have sites like udemy.com. They actually, even if you just Google it, which I was actually surprised to see when you Google personal development course or success course, there's a whole bunch that come up that are free, surprisingly, right? Or they give you sections of it free. And then, of course, you could always pay for the full one. I mean, I feel like if I was, let's say, 15, 16, and I went up to my parents and said, hey, mom, I want to do a personal development course or time management course or goal setting course for my future. Can you pay for it? My mother would be like, really? What? They will be so shocked, right? And they will throw out that money, right? So, I mean, it could be as simple as just Googling it, but when you look at the space and you, like, for instance, you look at the coach, type in success coaches, you'll see the Tony Robbins, you see the Jim Rohns, all these guys who are really big in the space. They all have their own courses, right? And it's not just for older persons, it's for anybody at any age, right? So it's really just to do a little bit of research to find out, what's the best fit for you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Problem.
Okay, so I wanted to know, is it possible to transform a weakness into a strength? And have you ever had that experience?
I feel like that's a common ground, straight from the bottom all the way up. I don't know why this question is making me think about basketball. So I played basketball for the majority of my life. And a big thing with basketball is that when you start getting good at one thing, your opponents will exploit what you're not good at. And remember, basketball is a team sport. So if now your weakness is constantly being exploited, you now have to make the decision of, do I continue making my strengths stronger, or do I take the time to now work on my weaknesses, right? So if I'm always going right, can't go left, they'll always know I'm going right, and it'll become redundant, and they'll just put more defenders there. And it kind of rings true in life. I mean, clearly not any aspect of them knowing I'm going right, but for instance, with the business, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you cannot be good at just one thing. I can't be good at just writing books. I can't be good at just having conversations and doing speeches. I need to be able to do better at other things. I had to learn about marketing, to learn about sales. I had to learn about how to build courses. I had to learn about social media. I once had an intern who had to show me how to use TikTok. I'm still struggling, but she had patience. So lucky for me, And if there's one thing that comes with weaknesses, and something I think, everyone here who's listening should hold on to, always strive to be a lifelong learner, which means just always be open to learning something new, because you never know how it will help you in that specific area. But you'd be surprised when you learn something new. It might help you with something that's in your main field of study. You really, really never know, right? So always be open to learning.
Okay,
Stemming from these questions, but go ahead.
Stemming from that question, do you have any advice for teenagers and young adults who are struggling to find their strengths and skills?
Yeah. I know that this is a lost art. We all about the laptops and the phones, but I want to take us back to these Stone Ages here. So you have to get a piece of paper, get like this writing utensil. I think it's called a pencil. I know we don't really use these things anymore. And it can be as simple as writing down strengths, writing down weaknesses or opportunities for growth, as I like to see them, and really thinking about, well, what are the things that I'm really, really good at? What are the things I am struggling with, right? We sneeze on the whole writing, but there's a meditation that comes into when you have to actually sit down and write something down and really contemplate about, okay, well, is this me? Is this not me? And when you see that list in front of you, you get to decide what's next. Do I build on my weaknesses? Which weaknesses do I build on? What are the strengths I have now? Are these adequate for where I want to be? And you ask these questions and you answer them. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of really up to you, but you're in such a perfect position where you can get family members involved. You could tell your parents, hey, this is what I came up with. Can you help me? I think the best thing I could have done for myself when I was younger and I was really struggling was ask for help. Turn to my parents and say, I want to be able to do X, Y, Z. I don't really know how to do it. Can you help me? And the thing is, even if your parents don't know how to do it, I am 100% certain they have a friend, uncle, cousin, friend who does it and is willing to guide you a little bit. So, for example, when I wanted to be a doctor, I explored different things. I explored being a radiologist. I thought it sounded interesting. And I told my parents, and they're like, well, we don't know nothing about that. But we have one friend who's a doctor. That friend had another doctor friend, who had a radiology friend, who gave me the number. And this was very young, yeah? And I called the person and said, yeah, you could come and intern, see what I do, and I can tell you what it would take to do this job. And I learned so much from that, even though I did not go on to become a radiologist. But just the fact that it was so simple to do, nothing can really hold you back from kind of getting better in that side.
So true. Okay, so another one of my questions is, who determines what a weakness is?
A weakness is very subjective. More or less you do, right? Don't want to get too complicated with these things, but there's something called a limiting belief. It's actually pretty good that you'll hear about this now. But a limiting belief is something that you believe is true subjectively. It doesn't mean that it is true. So, for example, when I was in Form 5, I'll never forget this. We had like a creative writing exercise, and my English teacher told me, Daniel, this is the most boring essay I've ever read in my life. I don't know if you're very creative, right? So from her saying that, I internalized that, oh wow, I am just not a creative person. And from that thought, which that thought itself is only a thought, it does not mean it's true, but I believed it as true. I had weaknesses that came from that. So from that one thought, I thought, well, not very creative. Maybe I shouldn't speak up when they're asking for feedback because I don't really have anything good to add to the conversation, etc., etc., etc. Right? And that's why I say it's kind of subjective, because you can do the opposite. You can tell yourself you're amazing. You can tell yourself that anything you start, you will finish. You can tell yourself once you have your eyes on your prize, it will get done. So you really set where your mindset is, and then that mindset then shows you what those strengths are or what those weaknesses are. So it's really a mind game. But you're in a really good position because, man, you kids believe you can do anything, and it's amazing, and you should hold on to that as long as you can.
Well, so from that question, you answered the question I had. I was
Oh
about to ask
no.
you. I was about to ask you, how did you find out what your strengths and skills were?
Yeah, kind of did. I'm sorry.
But I'd like to open up this space to let the audience know that you all can feel free to drop your questions that you'll have for Mr. Francis in the comments.
Anything dealing with coaching, anything dealing with like writing books. I have a whole experience of launching books, and because it's 2 books right now. And just what the expectation you have of like when you become an adult, because it's very different from when you're in school. So anything you can think of there, feel free to ask.
Okay, so I'd like to continue the discussion with asking you some on-the-spot questions.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I want to know, what are some tips or tricks for aspiring writers? Or you'd answer that question first. We have Lawrence Arjun. What are your daily success habits?
Right. Mine's, I like to put everything together in something called a morning routine. I think the morning routine is the best way to start your day. So it can be very simple activities for me, as I don't have to like rush off to a job. I can take my time with it. So I do 10 minutes of silence, just clearing my mind, trying not to let thoughts overwhelm me. I do 5 minutes of just visualizing what the day will look like, visualizing the success I want, visualizing the targets I want to hit. 20 minutes of reading, right? Just reading something kind of helps with the whole lifelong learner, always picking up information. And take 5 minutes to plan my day, just to know what's coming for the day. And then 20 minutes of exercise. That alone is like under hour type thing. Perfect way to start my day. And the morning routine is so good in that you can just put activities that work for you, right? So your morning routine doesn't have to look like mine. It can look like anything that you want it to look like. I think I'm seeing another question there.
From Nur, what advice do you have for young aspiring writers that they should hear now?
I think the number one thing that a writer should be focusing on is writing. I think that's the hardest part about it, right? Creating a habit of writing. I think it's very, very important. If you want to be a writer, if you want to have a career in writing, you should be writing every day. And for me, I mean, I've read all the different books that talk about the consistency and the morning period being the best time. So as soon as I finish my morning routine, the first thing I do, 1 hour of writing, right? I tell people, hey, don't bother me, put my phone aside and just focus on writing. What this does is that because you have a habit of writing now, the content is always there. So even if it doesn't go towards a particular book, you're just in the habit of creating, which is by in and of itself is just amazing, right? Because a lot of the authors I meet now, they struggle to get their books done because they're not accustomed to writing all the time, right? So it's a very slow grind for them. Once you build it into a habit, it comes like brushing your teeth. You do it so often that it's just like automatic, and that's where you want your writing to get to, because once you have that book, everything else can be figured out.
Okay, so we have another one from the chat from Elisha Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you afraid? Oh gosh.
I think I remember the question. Okay, it's back.
Were you afraid to publish a book? How did you overcome the thought that the book may not do well?
Yeah, I was super terrified. Just awfully terrified. You have to, because in the excitement of getting the idea, my second thought was, oh wait, I'm going to write a bunch of words that a bunch of people are going to read, and what if I write nonsense, right? So it's a natural thing to be afraid because you don't know if your book is going to do well. But you realize very early that this is something that you need to overcome. I had to come to the understanding that not everyone is going to like my book, or not everyone is going to resonate with my book. And that's simply because my book is not for everyone. It's for a specific type of person, right? So I had to come to that understanding. The second thing about if I was afraid it was going to do well, oh yeah, it's when you're doing something new, as we all know, it's always kind of unnerving. You're always kind of afraid because you're going into the unknown. You don't know what's going to come. You don't know if you're going to be good at it. You don't know if you're going to do well. For me, I put myself in a position with my book where I had kind of no choice but to do well. So basically, it was a set where, hey, if I don't sell a certain amount of books a month, well, I don't know what's going to happen here, right? But when people ask me these types of things, I always use this exercise to help me. I kind of do like a risk reward type situation where I say, well, what is the worst case scenario that happens here, right? And even if this worst case scenario happens, can I bounce back? And you find out when you do this exercise, you realize that, okay, so let's say I sell no books, I lose all my money. Worst case scenario. At the end of the day, yes, I could still call myself an author. Hey, I could still like give a book in a meeting and say, hey, I wrote a book. And I still have my parents, thankfully. So if I fail, they'll catch me. I'll be kind of heavy because I'm a grown adult now. So they'll be like, wow, this is a very heavy catch. But they will still catch me, they'll support me, right? So even if that happened, I can still definitely bounce back. So just weigh the risk versus the reward. And if you have something to compare it to, so for example, through events, well, pre-COVID when we could actually go outside. So I rationalize it as, I've sold 60 tickets for an event and each ticket was $250. I think I can more than sell 100 books each month that cost $150. And I kind of eased my fears a little bit. So you can try something like that for something that's new, try to compare it as well. These questions coming fast and furious here, boy.
There's one from Janika Lynch saying recommendations on how to balance your time effectively.
Right. Very good question. Now, I think for first things first, very simply, understand what your goal is and be really clear about it, right? So, for example, let's say your goal is that you want to get an A in a subject, right? And the test is maybe like a month away, right? That's the goal. We use that in this example. To keep everything together, you use the weekend and the day. So in the week, you say, all right, you know, this goal is important. So I think for me to do this well, try to quantify it. You say, I would need to study 2 hours a day to get that A at the end of the month. So you now look at your week and say, all right, 2 hours of studying, and you put it, time block it, like very important, where you want to get it done. So maybe Monday, 8 to 10 are studying. On Tuesday, 6 to 8 are studying, right? And you put it where you're comfortable. And then when you wake up each morning, hopefully you have a lovely morning routine that just eases your mind, make you comfortable, make you ready to crush it, you know? And then you look at your day and say, okay, these are the things that are set in stone. I have classes, I have work, etc. Look what 2 hours of studying. So now all you have to focus on is that thing that you have to do that day. Because you know, if I focus on it 2 hours today, 2 hours tomorrow, 2 hours the next day, that A is mine because I've done the math, right? So you now have to do that, but with all the other goals. So let's say you have 4 goals, just quantify where they all fit within your week, within your day. And it will be less about focusing on what's in the future and more focusing on, well, this is all I need to do today. And that can put so much ease on your mind because a lot of the productivity comes with people being anxious or feeling overwhelmed. So you need to break it down into small steps so that you can make it easier on yourself.
Really true. Okay, so we have another one from Khalifa. Since you write and read books, I have a question. I have to read a boring book for school and I want to know how to make it interesting.
This is so funny because, all right, so before left college and all this stuff, I actually really, really hated reading. Like, I was just one of those. Remember, I wanted to do medicine. So my textbooks were about like this thick. So when your textbook is this thick, you don't want to read anything for fun. You literally don't want to read outside of school, right? I had to like do all kind of tricks. I was the after 5 pages eat a gummy worm type person, and after 10 pages take a little walk around and come back, right? The best thing you can do when it comes to reading, and this really helped me when I started reading, I set the bar really, 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 really low, right? I started reading 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes, listen, you know what 10 minutes a day is? Nothing. It's you get up, game over. 10 minutes a day. If you could do 10 minutes a day for like 2 weeks, after that 2 weeks, you will say to yourself, well, this is too easy. And when you get to that mindset of this is too easy, what has happened is your attitude towards reading has now changed, and you cannot upgrade to the next level and say, all right, maybe I'll read 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You want to be comfortable. You want to stop right before the point where you feel like this is too much, because you're now creating, again, it's always about habit, a habit of reading. But you have to change your attitude first, and the only way you can change your attitude is start real small, right? I can't help you though if you have to cram everything into 3 days because you didn't read the book. I don't know what to tell you about that one, but try the method of doing small pieces, maybe spread out throughout the day, and over time it'll become easier.
And from Elisa Nichols, going back to fifth form, what did you decide to do out of fifth form? Because they are waiting results and they often feel like they're wasting time, which I do relate to as well because I'm also waiting results and I do feel like sometimes I'm wasting time.
Why does it feel like you're wasting time waiting for your results? Just curious.
Well, sometimes it's feel like I just sit and doing nothing. Well, now I'm not doing nothing now, but before it just felt like I was just sitting there.
Oh,
Just
okay. Because I know when I was done, I was just like, I just want to enjoy my time before Form 6. But I know with COVID, it can be a little bit difficult. But I mean, for me, I always just stuck with what I was good at. So I knew whatever I did really well in, those are the subjects I'm going for. for CAPE. So that looked like sciences. So I did what I do. I do biology, chemistry, and maths. I was not good at maths, but it was between maths and Spanish. And I saw the thickness of them books for Spanish class, and I'm like, you know what? I had a rough it through Spanish, through maths. But the thing is, the grades are super important, right? Because it shows your ability to comprehend and to focus and to push yourself. But at the end of the day, you know, we all have different talents. So don't be down if you don't do well in a particular thing or you're not exactly sure. Because at the end of the day, kind of once you know what your purpose is and you're really sure, but like, hey, this is what satisfies me, this is what I'm really passionate about, you can always use that to rebound because you can always use that as something that you focus on. But anytime now, you should be relaxing or should be reading. I'm not just saying reading, just read a book. But there's also a kind of a positive that comes to COVID because since a lot of people are not doing a lot, you find that they are online more. So who's to say you don't reach out to that person you've always looked up to and ask them a question? Just to see, slide in a DM and say, hey, Mr. Who's up there, boy? I know, Mr. Bill Gates, etc., etc., etc. You never know, you might get a reply. You're laughing, you know. When I came out with my first book, there was an author who I adored this man. I was like, this man's books are gold. And I messaged him on Instagram and I said, hey, his name also happened to be Daniel. So maybe that's why I get you. But anyway, I say, hey, Daniel, my name is also Daniel. Amazing. Look at that. I love your books. Like they have changed my life completely. And I know that we'll never meet because, you know, you're in Australia and I'm here. But I would love it if you would check out my book and give me a little review. I was really shooting in the dark. And then I asked him some advice on authoring my book and self-publishing. You know, this man replied. He not only replied and gave me advice, he spent the 2 days reading my book and sent me a review of my book. So you never know. This is the time of social media, this is the time of the internet. You have access. We don't even realize it because it's just so normal. But you should kind of be leveraging that.
Thank you, sir. It really was valuable. Really, really.
Thank you. That's it.
Especially that reading part. I need to start back with that reading part.
Yeah, that reading is super, super important. Listen, reading can change your life. I just let you know. Not because I'm an author and a writer, but reading changed my life. And it wasn't no kind of magic. It was literally, Daniel read 10 books this year. Daniel made this amount of money. Daniel read 60 books this year. Daniel just overbooked, right? Because more knowledge means more opportunities, more access, more informed decision making. The less knowledge you have, the less decisions you can make because you don't really know what to do. Everything will be a guess game. So just give yourself a little advantage, you know?
Okay, thank you, sir, and thank you, Moriah. Anything else before we wrap up this session, Moriah?
Well, before I wanted to say this, right? You really are right about knowledge is being power. Okay, so Daniel, I want to thank you very much for sharing today. It was really insightful. I want to thank Nyssa, my host, and you, the audience, for tuning in. Level Up is our chance to be our best selves, and you can catch more exciting presentations on LevelUpYuhself.com.
And sir, any last words before we wrap up this session?
Any last words? There's this quote I really like. It talks about your level of personal development equaling your level of success, because success is something that you attract by the person that you are. Really, to me, it just means that the more you invest in yourself, the more you learn, the more you're open to learning, the better your life will be, right? So even if you don't like reading, you have plenty of options, podcasts, audiobooks, university or YouTube, right? So don't limit yourself by saying, well, you know, I don't need to learn more, right? And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Moriah. It was a really great discussion. Level Up is being delivered by the Heroes Foundation. We create future good. We say yes organization, the Caribbean Male Action Network, also known as CariMAN, and the Zinc Network, with support from the United States Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.